Let's get loud.
It's showtime, showtime, showtime. Let's go, Seattle fans. Where you at? How devoted are you? Time to get loud with your host, Native Seahawk.
All right, welcome to this edition of the Loud and the Devoted. My name is Native Seahawk, aka Aaron Thomas. So happy that you're joining me today. This is Sunday, April 7th, 2024, and we're just about ready to get into the thick of the new league year for Seattle, even though it already began in early March, with all kinds of flurries of free agent transactions and all kinds of possible rookies that are maybe joining the team, coming to visit the Seahawks in Renton. And let's take a step backwards, though. Let's take a quick pause and a quick timeout to just check in with all of you. How things going as we start a brand new regime in Seattle? We could say it started a while back with the hiring of head coach Mike Macdonald, the former defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. Yet, those of us are still kind of hanging on to the old Pete Carroll regime, are still finding this part of the year very difficult to transition. And, change is hard. We know that. We know that as you change a job, or you change a relationship, or you change cities, and you go into a new environment. Maybe it's you're giving up cigarettes or you're giving up booze. Change is difficult. It's really part of the whole process of being human. And for Seahawks fans, we haven't had much change over the last 14 years. And thankfully, we still got John Schneider. He's still at the helm, even though a lot of folks, as we get into the draft and they're starting to look at his record, they're kind of feeling like, their level of confidence in him isn't that great. But I'll tell you this, we've been very, very blessed over the last 14 years that we're not changing regimes every few years like some teams. And those teams and who they are because they're usually at the very top of the draft every single year. They're usually a top 5 pick, every single NFL draft. And their fans have had it. Their fans are wanting some kind of change and, making sure that their regime and their whole years and history of their team continues to thrive. And, some teams haven't even been to the playoffs in decades. Some teams haven't been to a Super Bowl in decades. And yet it's only been since 2014 was the last time our Seahawks were in the Super Bowl. So 10 years ago, it's been a decade. So, of course, there's all kinds of reason for us to feel a little bit like, okay, what's really happening? Are we really going to turn the corner and get deep into the playoffs? Are we going to have a team that's going to be fielded enough, that's got the depth, that's got the coaching, that's got the want, the desire, that swag to get us deep into the playoffs again? And, some of us have been fans. This is my 40th year, believe it or not. I was 8 years old when I began sort of being forced to watch the Seahawks when I was 8. All my cousins and family were outside playing, and my late grandfather and my Uncle Bernie were like, nope, you're gonna watch football. Have a seat. We're going to show you how this game works. And I was always looking outside the window going, gosh, I want to be out there playing with them. But I'm thankful that I was taught how to watch the game, what the rules were, who the players were. And back then it was Dave Craig. Dave Craig was our starting quarterback. And Steve Largent was this, like a god on the field. And we had a pretty good defensive line. We had Jacob Green, and I think I'm bringing up all these old players that some of you are going, yes, I remember those guys. We had Kenny Easley. We had Terry Taylor was on the team. And we just had this really like underdog mentality all those years in the 80s where, we'd get to the playoffs and then we'd have some weird, funky NFL referee call some stupid play or penalty where we would have to, punt the ball, or it allowed the other team to actually get a first down. a touchdown. I don't know if you guys remember the Vinny Testaverde. I think that was in the 1990s where he was able to get in for the Jets back when the Seahawks were in the AFC and end our season. That's who we are as Seahawks fans. We've had to endure quite a bit. For those of you that are sort of in your 20s or 30s, you have no idea what we had to endure in the 90s because you probably weren't even born yet when some of the real funky plays were happening, and we had the Rick Myers and the Dan McGuires and all these quarterbacks that really weren't that good. We had to endure those years as big fans of the Pacific Northwest. And so change is hard, I know, but change could also be really, really good. And I really feel like in 2024, as we fast forward now, that the Seahawks are starting to kind of position themselves into a way that, again, call me a homer, call me because I'm a season ticket holder for the last 18 years, call me what you want. I will also call a spade a spade. That's what you're going to get with this podcast. I'm not going to be someone that's so glossy-eyed that I think that no matter what John Schneider does is going to be amazing, and thank God we have John Schneider. No. I also come from a real emphasis in business, and I understand how businesses are formed. I've worked for casinos and gaming. I've worked for education systems, nonprofits. I have worked for a Fortune 250 company currently, corporate company. So I know how things work. I know corporate speak. I know culture and business culture. I know player culture just a little bit. I'm learning as we go along, but I've learned over the last 40 years of watching this team that anything is possible. That even though we might have that underdog mentality, and I still think that those of us that bleed blue and green have that, will always have that, even when this team, this current team I'm talking about, yes, your Seattle Seahawks, even though I believe they're going to turn that corner, I will still feel like we are an underdog. And it's that underdog mentality that unites us as Seahawks fans, that everybody picks the opponent to beat us that Sunday. And you watch the Kairos or the King Fives or the ESPNs, and their pundits will say, I'm going for the team that's playing against the good guys. We are the ones that say, no way. We are going to come to the stadium loud. We are very devoted. We're going to be there no matter what, even when the times have not been so good. We've been, all of us that are watching, I'm pretty sure, were there when we lost on the 2-yard line in the Super Bowl. And I promised myself I would never, ever bring that up again. And I probably will be the last time you'll ever hear me talk about that on this podcast. But at the end of the day, we've been through the muck. We've been through the dirt, the mud. We've been drugged through it as Seahawks fans. And so we know that feeling. Yet, for me, this team that is being assembled right now has got the bones. It's like walking into a home and saying, yeah, it's kind of, there's nicks and dents on the house, and that window's broken, and that paint is old, and yet the bones are good. This team has a possibility to go very far because the bones are good. And all it needed was a new owner to come into the home, and another person's touch to come in and craft something that's so beautiful in the home that the new paint gets put on, the window gets fixed, the floorboards need a little bit of help over here, new appliances are brought in, and new shrubbery and landscaping is going on outside the front of the house. That's what this team is in 2024. I firmly believe that. And as the new league year began, and the teams are now able, especially those that with clubs that hired new head coaches, which is Seattle Seahawks, may now begin their off-season workout programs. That happens on April 8th for Seattle. On Monday, April 8th, the Seahawks began, and this was the chance for us to start seeing the guys come to Renton, be able to kind of understand a new culture. It's probably not going to look a lot like what Pete Carroll had over the last 14 years. It's going to be a whole different version of it. And this is where the rubber hits the road for your Seahawks. Does Coach Mike McDonald have what it takes to inspire his players, Does he have what it takes? Not just looking at the defense, but also the offense, the special teams. Does he have the wherewithal to be all places at all times? We're very thankful that Coach Mike Mack is in his 30s. He's not that far removed from his 20s, where a lot of the rookies are coming in after the April draft. He can really resonate and relate with his players. That's what we've been told. None of us were in Baltimore. None of us were really in those meeting rooms or behind closed doors to see what he really does to really up the culture, the player culture for Baltimore. We were never there. Yet we've been told by players, his former players, that, and the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens and the owner, everybody that has any real credible connection to the Baltimore Ravens have said that Coach Mike Macdonald is the real deal. And so, again, you can have all the accolades, you can have all the different, people tell you that you're great. It's really where the rubber hits the road is going to start tomorrow on April 8th and going forward. When he starts to really resonate with the players or not. We got to see what happened the last couple of years in Seattle, where some of the players were not relating to Coach Carroll. And, it wasn't Coach Carroll's fault. It's just he tried the best he could. He used all the tools at his disposal. He had brought a whole different culture into Seattle. That's what Coach Mike Macdonald is trying to do. This is where the road to that swag team, that the team that could go far into the playoffs and possibly make it back to the big Super Bowl game, this is where it really begins. It's not the free agents that they got. It's not going to be even the draft. Those are all things that, you're making the soup, right? You're throwing in all the good, the great touches to it, the salt, the vinegars, the basil, the celery, the carrots, the meat, the potatoes, and you're to put the temperature gauge at a certain level, and you're watching how it goes throughout the time that you're making this beautiful soup. And so as we continue on in the league year after, this week's going to be big. We're going to be able to see what happens and what the players and how they resonate with Coach Mike Macdonald and all these new coaches Seattle got. The offensive coordinator is new, defensive coordinator is new, special teams coordinator is new. Everybody's new on this team except for John Schneider, who got to stay back, and a few key veterans, wily veterans that are on the team already. We're going to hear from those key players in the next few weeks, how things are going. Hopefully they'll be very candid with us and they'll tell us what they're really seeing behind closed doors. Then you got the deadline on April 19th for restricted free agents to sign. You got voluntary minicamp. That's another big key date. April 22nd through the 24th in a few weeks is voluntary minicamp. We're going to see which key veterans on the team, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Geno Smith, who's all really going to come and volunteer their time for a few days in Renton. And you've heard Brock Heward, you've heard other people talk about how important it is to have those key leaders there in Renton, because you'll have the second and third year guys, the backups will be there. Yet it's the key starters we'll see if their leadership will resonate, again, how they play a role in building this brand new player culture that we're going to see this year and in subsequent years. Then we got the draft, April 25th to the 27th in Detroit. God, I would love to be there. I'm sure you would too. And it would be fun just to see how things go. I have a lot of folks that are texting me or are talking to me about the NFL draft and what I think Seattle should do with the number 16th overall pick. And I've said this before in previous episodes, but I think unless there's a blue chip guy that falls to him, and I'm not talking about a quarterback. That's, first of all, let's stop there. People say, well, what if Michael Penix is there? Bo Nix is there? What if J.J. McCarthy somehow falls down, which I don't think he will? What if? I don't think that Seattle should draft a quarterback this year. And if they do, it should be later in, 6th or 7th round, or even a key free agent rookie that nobody expects. could possibly be a developmental quarterback for the squad. We just have way too many holes. We could definitely use on a 16th overall pick a Brock Bowers, a tight end from Georgia, who can do all the things that you're looking for in a tight end, not just catch or not just block, but a guy that can do both. If he's sitting there at 16th, I'm nabbing him. He could be the next George Kittles. He could be somebody in that regard where, and of course with the new offensive coordinator in Ryan Grubb, he loves using tight ends. And we've got Noah Fant. We've got another one of our free agent pickups was from New England. We've got him. Don't know what we got with him yet. I believe his last name is Parker. We don't know what we have with that guy, but if we brought in a Brock Bowers to come in to play for Seattle, I think we would have a tremendous up in the future in that position, because you don't know how far Noah Fant's going to be on this team openly. You don't. You signed him for a few years, but you just don't know. With Bowers on the team, you've got your cornerstone tight end for the next 5 to 7 years, the way that I see it. If somehow we also get another top 10 projected player to come in and it's still sitting there at 16, a defensive tackle that we really need, then I think you pick him there. However, what I really hope happens, they don't go for Penix, which I love me some Penix, don't get me wrong, and I love me some Bo Nix. I think those two guys are going to have a really solid, above average, tenure in the NFL. I think Seattle needs to go and if they can find a trade partner to pick up more picks. I was kind of going back and forth with somebody on Twitter about it. They're trying to say, no, I think we should go, tab the best player available at 16, which, a lot of folks are saying it's very possible that Seattle does have the two intersecting things that you're looking for. You're looking for need and you're looking for the best player available. And if you can get them intersecting at the same spot that you're in, or if you can try to maneuver yourself out of that same pick and move out just a little bit further down the line and still have that intersection, then you've got it, because then you've added another pick or two. And so that's the best case scenario, in my opinion. If we can go from 16 to no later than 24 or 25, have somebody trade up because they're looking for a Penix or a Bo Nix or somebody they want to take the gamble on a young quarterback, then go for it. But give us back a high second round pick for 2024. Give us back or a few third round picks to move up to that spot. You can be very creative if you've got the total leverage because somebody's thinking they're going to get their franchise quarterback at that spot. So you can actually ask for more. In Seattle, that would be perfect, because what we'll go through in the next edition of this podcast, we're going to go through who the starters are, who the projected backups are, and you're going to see a lot of holes there, especially when it comes to depth. Seattle needs depth. That's where they're at. Again, the house is good. The bones of the house are good. We need to fix that window. We need to paint that door. We need to put that shrub in the front of the house. We need those little things that are going to make it look really, really good and sturdy for a long time. So I'm really excited as we go into this year, this new league year. This year, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the players gel with Mike McDonald and the new coaching staff. I have a real feeling that it's going to go really, really well as we move on into the year. May 20th is when the off-season training activities firmly begin. That's when the rookies come. They'll have their own little rookie mini camp, I believe, before May 20th. And maybe it is that weekend is the rookie mini camp. But the rookies will come in first, then the veterans will come in after them, and then they get to kind of intermix together, and we'll see what comes up after this first round of OTAs, off-season training activities for your Seattle Seahawks. So that'll do it for me. I want to thank you all again for joining and participating with me. The back and forth on Twitter is good. I hope that we can continue to stay positive. I know we're all passionate, we're all devoted Seahawks fans, and we're very loud, and so we can be very opinionated. I'm okay with that. But let's try to keep it as respectful as we can as we continue on. We're not going to see eye to eye on everything. That's okay. That's what makes this country amazing, and why we get to do the things we get to do is because we have the First Amendment right to speak. And we get to go to the Seahawks games. We get to be as loud and as obnoxious as we want to be because we're devoted. We are the most devoted fans in the NFL. My name is Native Seahawk, a.k.a. Aaron Thomas. We'll see you next time. And go Hawks!